As Hanli listened to Hu Jingjing's explanation, his gaze swept across their surroundings. The broad bridge was crowded with carriages and pedestrians, bustling with activity. Not far from him stood the outer railing of Tongji Bridge. Looking down through the white jade balustrade, he saw enormous aquatic beasts moving through the river below. Some carried elaborately decorated pleasure boats on their backs, while others pulled them along. The vessels traveled back and forth in orderly streams. The largest and most powerful establishment in Dijiang Market is called the Flowing Wind Pavilion. Hu Jingjing continued. The first prince is actually the force behind it. Most of its goods are extremely high grade, but their prices are naturally just as impressive. After that comes a branch of Broadsource House. It is only slightly weaker in strength, but it has the best reputation of them all. Han Li's heart stirred. Is the headquarters of Broadsource House located here? The establishment in Dijiang Market is only a branch, not its headquarters. The headquarters is also in the Maha district, but it is located near Tongyi Garden. That is more than half the district away from here, Hu Jingjing explained. As they spoke, the carriage crossed Tongji Bridge and was stopped by the demon cultivators stationed on the other side. The two of them stepped down and continued on foot. Go on, Hanli said. Yes. Dijiang Market does not only contain shops that sell the treasures and spiritual materials of the sacred race. There are also shops that sell items from the Immortal Realm. The Immortal Spirit Pavilion specializes in such goods. But the strangest establishment is undoubtedly the Curio House. The things sold there are exceptionally bizarre. Some items cause a sensation throughout Night Sun City the moment they appear, while others are so peculiar that no one knows what to make of them. Seeing that Hanli was listening carefully, Hu Jingjing smiled knowingly and continued. That shop sounds interesting. Does it have a powerful backer? Hanli asked. It does. This is no secret in Night Sun City. The person financing the Curio House is the 12th Prince Shi Jingkai. Hu Jingjing replied with a nod. Shi Jingkai. Is he the younger brother of the 5th princess, Shi Jingyan, born of the same mother? That is correct. The 12th prince is quite an unusual person. He is extraordinarily handsome, but his nature is wild and uninhibited. He has never taken cultivation seriously and remains only at the true immortal stage. He loves traveling through mountains and rivers, exploring secret realms and the ruins of ancient immortal estates. Many of the goods in the Curio House were collected by him from various places. The myriad nether pot, a demonic treasure that once became famous throughout Night Sun City, was brought back by him. To dare enter such dangerous places with only a true immortal's cultivation, the 5th princess must worry endlessly about him, Hanli said with a smile. You are exactly right, senior. It is said that the 5th princess arranged for 3 Grand Unity Jade Immortals to remain at her brother's side at all times. She also entrusted a great encompassment cultivator with watching over him. Otherwise, how could he possibly be allowed to behave so recklessly? Hu Jingjing lowered her voice as she spoke, a mischievous smile on her face. They soon arrived at the entrance to the market. Upon seeing the towering stone archway, Hanli suddenly stopped. That will be enough, Miss Jingjing. You may return. The demon girl, who had been smiling brightly only moments before, froze. Senior. For a cultivator at the spatial tempering stage, you know far too much. You have already guided me to Dijiang Market, and I know the way back. There is no need for you to continue following me. The smile vanished from Han Li's face as he spoke. The smile on Hu Jingjing's face gradually disappeared as well. Expressionless, she bowed to him. This servant obeys. Han Li paid her no further attention. With his back turned, he casually waved a hand and walked beneath the archway. The demon girl watched him disappear into the crowd. An indignant expression appeared on her face. She stamped her foot heavily, turned around and headed back toward Tongji Bridge. After walking for a while, Han Li glanced over his shoulder. Seeing that she had sensibly chosen not to follow him in secret, the corner of his mouth lifted into a faint smile. He then began examining the shops lining both sides of the street. The architecture of Dijiang Market was far less orderly than that of the Demon Palace. Buildings of many different styles stood mixed together, giving the area a somewhat chaotic appearance. Combined with the constant stream of pedestrians filling the roads and alleys, however, it possessed a lively, worldly atmosphere. Most of the people resembled ordinary humans, though each retained some minor characteristic of the demon race. Some had a single scale, some possessed a small horn, and others had pupils of unusual colors. There were also people who maintained a completely human appearance. Although they were a minority, they were not especially rare. As a result, Hanli did not attract much attention while walking among them. Before long, he came upon a 3-story pavilion with carved beams, painted rafters, and dramatically upturned eaves. Its ancient design resembled the architectural style of the Immortal Realm. A plaque above the entrance identified it as the Immortal Spirit Pavilion. The flow of customers outside its doors was noticeably thinner than that of the neighboring shops, making the building seem rather deserted. Hanli stepped over the threshold and entered. The moment he walked inside, a dense wave of immortal spiritual energy washed over him. The entire pavilion was actually covered by an independently operating grand formation that gathered and confined the spiritual energy of heaven and earth from the surrounding area. A young man dressed in scholarly robes emerged from the hall and hurried over to greet him. A practiced smile appeared on his otherwise unremarkable face. An honored guest has arrived. Forgive us for failing to welcome you sooner. I can hardly be considered an honored guest. I am merely curious as to why your establishment operates in the capital of the demon realm, Hanli said casually. Just as there is no shortage of demons in the immortal realm, there are human cultivators in the demon realm as well. You yourself are one such person, are you not? This humble shop primarily serves immortals like you who have crossed between realms. That is certainly true. Hanli nodded. May I ask what you require? I need to purchase several materials. I do not know whether your shop carries them. Hanli drew a sheet of paper from his sleeve and handed it over. The young man accepted it and examined the contents carefully. As he read, his brow gradually furrowed. Everything listed here is a top-grade material. Apart from the first 2 items, our humble establishment does not possess any of them. However, should you require them, I can contact our merchant association and see whether they can be transferred here from elsewhere. After a moment of hesitation, the young man looked at Hanli with a subtly altered expression. If they can be transferred here, that would naturally be ideal. It would be best if you could gather everything on the list, Hanli said. You jest, honored guest. These materials are far too rare. If we managed to gather even half of them, it would already be an impressive achievement. I fear you will have to search elsewhere for the rest, the young man replied apologetically. That is fine. I will take as many as you can obtain. There is another matter I must inform you of in advance. Transferring goods here from the Immortal Realm is different from moving them within the Immortal Realm, and consumes a considerable amount of resources. Should you be willing to wait, we can include your materials in the next scheduled shipment between the 2 realms. If you are pressed for time, we can arrange an expedited transfer, but the added expense will naturally be reflected in the price. As long as the wait is not too long, it does not matter, Hanli said. The next shipment is expected to arrive in approximately 10 years. Hanli fell silent for a moment. How much would the price increase if the transfer fee were included? According to the rules of the Merchant Association, the price would increase by 1/10. Can I pay with Immortal Origin Stones? Of course. The young man smiled. Then I will wait 10 years, Hanli said after a long period of consideration. Very well. Please wait in the guest chamber. I will retrieve the 2 spiritual materials we have in stock and bring them for your inspection. A trace of delight flashed through the young man's eyes. Within the imperial city stood an exquisitely arranged courtyard filled with dense demonic energy. A pretty demon girl hurried through its halls and courtyards until she reached an elegant white building with a pointed roof at the very rear. She stopped outside its entrance. She was none other than Hu Jingjing, whom Hanli had dismissed earlier. However, her cultivation had somehow risen to the early golden immortal stage. Just as she was about to speak, the doors opened inward on their own. The girl hesitated briefly before hurrying inside. The interior was spacious and sparsely furnished. A silver-haired man dressed in close-fitting black garments stood before an enormous canvas, gently applying color with a brush. The painting depicted a tall, perilous black mountain standing alone. A blurred figure stood at its summit, facing a violent storm. Above the figure, A snow-white bolt of lightning descended from the heavens, tearing through most of the scene. Jingjing, were you driven away so soon? The silver-haired man put down his brush and turned around. A gentle smile appeared on his strikingly handsome face. He was none other than Shi Chuangkong's third elder brother, Shi Pokong. Your Highness, that man. Hu Jingjing bowed respectfully and began recounting everything that had happened. She described her wait outside the estate, the journey to Dijiang Market, and her separation from Hanli beneath the archway. She reported everything she had seen and heard along the way, including every word Hanli had spoken and every change in his expression. Shi Pokong stood with his arms folded, listening quietly without interrupting her. Only after she had finished did he ask a question. After he sent you away, you did not follow him in secret, did you? Your Highness warned me beforehand. This servant did not dare make any unnecessary moves. Hu Jingjing hurriedly replied. Good. You handled the matter well. Shi Pokong smiled and nodded. A trace of hesitation appeared in Hu Jingjing's eyes. She looked as though she wished to say something but was reluctant to speak. Say what is on your mind, Shi Pokong said with a smile. Your Highness, although that man behaved amiably throughout the journey, when he spoke those final words, I could not help feeling a chill run down my spine. Part of the reason I did not dare follow him was because I was genuinely afraid. Hu Jingjing did not conceal anything and answered truthfully. Shi Pokong chuckled. He deliberately did that for my benefit. You need not concern yourself with it. He did not refuse your guidance at the beginning, which means he was willing to show me some respect. He only dismissed you after reaching Dijiang Market. That was a warning for me to know when to stop and not push him too far. Clearly, he was displeased that I had placed him under surveillance, but he understood precisely how far he could go. Shi Pokong rubbed his hands together and smiled. He is merely a lowly human, yet he dares act so arrogantly while standing in the capital of our sacred realm. Your Highness even treated him with courtesy. A barbarian like that should be taught a painful lesson, Hu Jingjing said indignantly. That is enough. You are not to say such things again. He is, after all, a guest invited by 13th brother. We were the ones who acted improperly. Pass down my order. From now on, no one is to follow or monitor him. I will keep an eye on him myself. Yes. This servant obeys. You may leave. Shi Pokong waved a hand. Hu Jingjing immediately bowed and withdrew. Once she was gone, Shi Pokong turned back toward the enormous painting and stared at it in silence. He truly is no simple character. Interesting. Only after a long while did he murmur those words to himself. Meanwhile, Hanli had already left the Immortal Spirit Pavilion and arrived before a peculiar building constructed beside the river. Its entrance faced the slow-moving water rather than the main street of the market. The entire structure was built from black stone. Its roof was rounded, and strange circular patterns had been carved across its surface. Hanli stood before it, looking up at the plaque above the entrance. The Curio Workshop. He frowned slightly and murmured the name. After a moment of hesitation, he stepped inside. There was not a single customer in the shop. The interior seemed exceptionally quiet. The shop's displays were divided into two distinct rows. Above the shelves on the left hung a black wooden sign bearing the words, "Reserved for those with discerning eyes." The writing was faded with age, and the sign was covered in a thick layer of dust. A wooden sign also hung above the shelves on the right, but it read, "Reserved for those of great wealth." It appeared considerably newer. A shop attendant stood behind each counter. One was yawning with half-closed eyes, while the other leaned over the counter, absorbed in a green-bound book. Hanli approached the latter and glanced at the book. It was not a cultivation manual, but a vulgar romantic tale popular among ordinary mortals. Upon noticing Hanli's approach, the attendant shifted away with a look of annoyance and closed the book. "What are you looking for, guest? Our curio workshop has plenty of respectable goods and even more questionable ones. Whatever your needs may be, we can satisfy them." The man's opening words were startlingly shameless. Hanli found the situation rather absurd. He raised his head and examined the shelves behind the attendant. They were filled with a dazzling variety of demonic artifacts, magical treasures, rare pills and spiritual materials, all mixed together without the slightest sense of order. Every item was naturally of an impressive grade, but the prices displayed beneath them were even more astonishing. Even Han Li, who had acquired the wealth of Taoist master Zhaogu, felt they were excessively high. After looking through the shelves, however, he found nothing that caught his attention. He shook his head and turned toward the shelves marked for those with discerning eyes. Seeing that Han Li had purchased nothing, the attendant appeared completely accustomed to it and showed no disdain. He simply picked up his green book again, licked a finger, and continued turning the pages. The goods on the other shelves were arranged in an even more chaotic manner, and none of them had prices. At a glance, Han Li saw severed limbs and claws from many different beasts. Some still gleamed with light and radiated a fierce baleful aura, while others had long since dried and withered, without the slightest trace of vitality. Beside the severed limbs were many transparent crystal bottles containing spiritual liquids of various colors. Eyeballs of different shapes and sizes floated inside them. Some came from strange beasts, while others clearly belonged to human cultivators. When Han Li's gaze fell upon an eyeball resembling a gray stone sphere, his heart stirred. "How much is that one?" He raised a hand and pointed toward it from a distance. The drowsy attendant finally came to his senses. Rubbing his sleepy eyes, he glanced back and answered indistinctly. 3,500. Demonic Origin Stones. That expensive? Does the sign not say the goods are reserved for those with discerning eyes? Han Li asked with a frown. You have indeed recognized something worthwhile, guest. But the sign only says that those with discerning eyes may obtain it. It never says they can obtain it without paying. The attendant yawned, smiling lazily. Han Li was left momentarily speechless and could only laugh bitterly to himself. Unless he was mistaken, the eyeball was the single eye of an adult Taifei beast. It was an object containing the power of the law of time. However, a restrictive formation seemed to cover the crystal bottle, concealing all fluctuations from within. Even Han Li could not clearly sense its nature. May I ask whether your establishment sells a map of Night Sun City? It would be even better if it came with reports containing relevant information. Han Li turned his attention away from the eyeball. A map? Naturally, we have one. However, it only displays the layout of the Black Sky and Maha districts. The Luojia district, where the imperial city is located, and certain secret locations within the city naturally do not appear. That does not matter. It would be ideal if it also included descriptions of the customs and notable places in each district. A map of Night Sun City costs 50 demonic origin stones. A record of the customs of the Night Sun region costs 300. Should you wish to purchase information about specific secrets, we offer that as well, though you will have to pay considerably more. No, thank you. I will take only those two. After a brief hesitation, Han Li smiled. Once payment had been exchanged, he stored away a black jade slip containing the map and a thick black book. He then turned to leave. Just as he reached the doorway and was about to duck outside, the attendant called after him. Would you care to reconsider purchasing the Taifei Beast single eye? The price is still negotiable. Han Li lowered the foot he had already raised and turned around. How would you suggest we negotiate? Our second shopkeeper established a rule. If a guest can produce an item sufficiently rare to sell to us, then the prices of the goods on the discerning eyes shelves may be reduced at our discretion. An item sufficiently rare? Han Li raised an eyebrow. Something sufficiently strange would also qualify. We will decide whether it has value. Han Li frowned and considered the matter. After a moment he suddenly remembered something. Since you possess so many fragments from strange beasts, do you also purchase complete corpses? That depends on the corpse. Generally speaking, it must at least be the remains of a Grand Unity Jade Immortal. What use would we have for the remains of an ordinary cultivator? A Grey Immortal's corpse, Han Li replied. What cultivation level? The attendant immediately became interested. While alive, it possessed strength comparable to a Golden Immortal. If it were the corpse of a Grand Unity Grey Immortal, you could exchange it directly for the Taifei Beast's eye. Since it is only at the Golden Immortal level, you will have to make up the difference. The attendant's eyes drooped in disappointment, but he continued speaking. How much more would I need to pay? Han Li asked. 500 demonic origin stones. Agreed. After a brief moment of thought, Han Li nodded. He swept his palm through the air. A dazzling silver light flashed, and the corpse of a gray immortal dressed in white robes appeared on the counter. It was the first gray immortal he had encountered in the ruins of the True Mantra sect. The attendant stepped forward and pried open the corpse's eyelids. After examining them carefully, he produced a palm-sized silver mirror and used it to scan the body from head to toe. Its identity has been verified. We may proceed with the exchange. Only then did he put away the mirror and nod. Han Li paid another 500 demonic origin stones, accepted the Taifei beast's single eye, and left the shop. Not long after his departure, a tall and beautiful woman slowly emerged from behind a screen leading to the rear hall. She wore a close-fitting suit of silver armor that protected only the vital areas of her chest and abdomen. The armor perfectly outlined her flawless, graceful figure. Her striking snow-white hair was tied high and secured atop her head with a silver crown, giving her a valiant and commanding appearance. Combined with her incomparably beautiful face, she appeared all the more dazzling. "Greetings, head shopkeeper." The two attendants hurried out from behind their counters and bowed deeply. The silver-armored woman casually waved for them to dispense with the formalities. She did not look at either of them. After glancing at the gray immortal's corpse on the counter, she turned her gaze toward the Imperial Garden River outside. He was given the perfect opportunity to inquire about secret information, yet he refused to take it. He truly knows how to remain patient. After returning to the main street, Han Li looked up at the sky. Seeing that it was still early, he continued exploring Dijiang Market. However, to avoid suspicion, he deliberately stayed away from the Flowing Wind Pavilion, which was backed by the first prince. It was not until evening that Han Li purchased a scale beast carriage from the animal enclosure outside the market and returned to the third prince's estate. After arriving at his courtyard in Long Pavilion Garden, he hurried into his room. Only after activating every restriction did he pull over a chair and sit down. With a turn of his wrist, a gray-white stone sphere appeared in his palm. It was the Taifei beast's single eye he had purchased earlier. Golden light flashed in his hand as he slowly sent a thread of time law power into it. The gray-white sphere flickered. Cracks spread across its surface as though it were a shattered tortoise shell, and a brilliant golden light shone from within. When the outer layer of stone had completely peeled away, an intact golden eyeball was revealed. Waves of overwhelmingly powerful time law energy surged from it. Han Li immediately turned his wrist and stored the eyeball away. The strange phenomena in the room instantly disappeared. This was definitely no ordinary Taifei beast's eye. The time power contained within it was several times greater than that of the first one he had obtained. Could it have come from a mutated Taifei beast? Han Li was puzzled, but he had no way to determine the answer. One thing was obvious. He had gained an enormous advantage from the exchange. He had indeed proven himself to possess discerning eyes. Most of the items listed on the purchasing list he had shown at the Immortal Spirit Pavilion were objects containing the law of time. They were preparations for his continued cultivation of the grand five elements illusory world art. By cultivating the technique normally, he could steadily improve his cultivation, but the process would take an extremely long time. If he possessed time law objects to assist him, however, his cultivation speed would increase dramatically. This unusual Taifei beast's eye was perfectly suited for that purpose. After storing it away, a contemplative expression crossed Han Li's face. According to his original plans for the day, he had intended to find a way to contact the demon race's high priest in secret. When the attendant at the curio workshop offered to sell him confidential information, Han Li had hesitated briefly before decisively abandoning the idea. First, he did not trust the shop. Second, he intended to learn more about the customs and unspoken rules of Night Sun City before making a decision. Recklessly asking for secret information at this stage would not have been wise. He was currently a stranger in the demon realm and understood very little about his surroundings. Caution was essential. If trouble arose, he could rely on no one but himself. After some time, Han Li suddenly frowned. With a wave of his hand, brilliant silver light flashed and a doorway of light appeared. Daoist Xie stepped through it and came to stand before Han Li. "Fellow Daoist Han, that strange sensation has appeared again. Tell me about it." Hanli gestured for Dao Xie to sit opposite him. While you were moving through Night Sun City earlier, fragments of memories seemed to flash through my mind. They were only brief, scattered moments and could not be connected together. What scenes did you see? Try describing them. Hanli's heart stirred. Dao Xie tightly furrowed his brow and thought for a long while. There was a small black city, a blue-green river, and an enormous arched bridge. Is that all? Hanli asked in surprise. I do not know why, but the images were extremely clear when they first appeared. Now that I am trying to describe them, they are becoming increasingly blurred. Dao Xie rubbed his temples in discomfort. Do not force yourself if you cannot remember. We will not be leaving Night Sun City for the time being, so those scenes may appear again. Once Shi Chuankong emerges from seclusion, I will first ask him about the scaled void realm. Dao Xie hesitated before slowly nodding. You came to see me in such a hurry. There must be something else, Hanli said. Regarding the scaled void realm, I have a vague impression that it is an extremely dangerous place. Did you remember something? Only a vague impression. I recalled slightly more information than before, but nothing beyond that. Dao Xie shook his head. It seems this place is helping restore your memories. Perhaps your former master once came here. We will discuss it again after learning more. Hanli spoke thoughtfully. I obtained several more materials from Taoist Master Zhaogu's storage ring. They will benefit my cultivation. The two battle sabers, Lightning Severer and Skybreaker, also need to be upgraded, so I intend to enter seclusion for a while. Night Sun City appears relatively peaceful for now. You may cultivate in seclusion without concern. Unless it is absolutely necessary, I will not disturb you. Thank you. Dao Xie rose and returned to the hidden realm through the doorway. Hanli remained seated in silence for a while. He then took out the map and information book he had purchased from the curio workshop and began examining them carefully. More than 10 days later, Hanli left the third prince's estate and traveled to Dijiang Market again. The girl named Hu Jingjing did not appear, nor did he discover anyone secretly following him. From that point onward, it was as though the third prince had completely forgotten about him. The two sides had no further interaction. Several months passed. By then, Hanli had visited nearly every shop in Dijiang Market. He had also gradually sold the demonic artifacts from Taoist Master Zhaogu's storage ring, and exchanged them for several objects containing the law of time. At the same time, he began gathering information about the high priest and searching for a method to save Weeping Soul. Unfortunately, information concerning either matter was exceedingly scarce, and very little of what he obtained was useful. Out of caution, Hanli deliberately avoided establishments with powerful backgrounds, such as the Curio Workshop and the Flowing Wind Pavilion. He made no attempt to approach them. Later, by sheer coincidence, a shopkeeper who had become relatively familiar with him suggested that he visit Heavenview Street. According to the shopkeeper, many high-ranking alchemists of the sacred race were based there. In particular, a celestial alchemist serving at Flourishing Origin Hall was highly skilled at treating rare and complicated conditions. The shopkeeper suggested that Hanli seek him out. On that day, Hanli traveled across more than half of Night Sun City in a scale beast carriage and arrived at Heavenview Street. Heavenview Street was more than twice the size of Dijiang Market. Although it was called a street, it was actually an entire commercial district. 14 roads crossed the area in a grid of 7 vertical and 7 horizontal streets. Nearly every large shop there specialized in medicinal pills and spiritual materials. The market's main entrance was also marked by an enormous white stone archway. Beyond the archway lay a spacious white stone plaza. Very little stood within it apart from a bronze pill furnace more than 100 feet tall at its center. Flames burned inside the furnace, while green smoke curled from its top and drifted upward without dispersing. Hanli stopped beside the furnace, wrinkled his nose and inhaled lightly. A faint smile appeared on his face. No pills were actually being refined within the furnace. It contained only a type of incense unique to the demon race. Its purpose was to conceal the indescribable odor created by the many medicinal pills and spiritual materials mixed together throughout the market. Hanli circled around the furnace and entered the street directly ahead, walking slowly toward its depths. Compared with the mixture of architectural styles in Dijiang Market, The buildings here were far more orderly. Most consisted of white walls built at varying heights, with pointed and rounded roofs standing beside one another. Although the streets were crowded, they did not seem noisy or chaotic. No shopkeepers or attendants stood outside shouting to attract customers. Everything remained calm and organized. Hanli did not wander through the alleys. Following the directions provided by the shopkeeper, he walked directly to the middle of the main street, turned left onto an adjacent road, and headed straight toward Flourishing Origin Hall. Upon arriving, he saw that the establishment was indeed extraordinary. Its storefront was more than twice the size of the neighboring shops, and customers constantly passed through its entrance. Hanli walked inside. Both counters were surrounded by demon cultivators. 7 or 8 attendants were busy serving them, and could not keep up with the crowd. For a time, no one came to greet Hanli. At that moment, a slightly plump middle-aged man in brocade robes emerged from the rear hall. When he saw Hanli, a smile appeared on his face and he hurried over. "Forgive us for neglecting an honored guest." "There is no need. I have only just arrived," Hanli replied with a smile. "May I ask what you wish to purchase? Medicinal pills or spiritual materials?" The middle-aged man examined Hanli from head to toe. "Neither. I wish to meet someone." The man looked surprised. A trace of vigilance immediately appeared in his eyes. "Shopkeeper, please do not misunderstand. I merely wish to meet the chief celestial alchemist of Flourishing Origin Hall. I have a matter for which I require his assistance and harbor no malicious intentions." Hanli cupped his hands politely. The middle-aged man relaxed slightly. "So you wish to meet Master Kong? Unfortunately, your timing could hardly be worse. The master recently entered seclusion to refine pills. I fear he will be unable to meet you." "He entered seclusion? That is unfortunate." Hanli appeared surprised. "If you wish to purchase some of Master Kang's specially refined pills, we still have several in stock. Perhaps you would care to examine them." "Do you know when Master Kong will emerge from seclusion?" Hanli asked after a brief hesitation. "That is impossible to say." The middle-aged man gave him an apologetic look. "In that case, I will return another day." Hanli sighed inwardly, turned around and walked toward the entrance. The middle-aged shopkeeper watched him leave, shook his head, and returned to the rear hall. Hanli stepped onto the main street and glanced back at Flourishing Origin Hall before walking toward the opposite side of the road. At that moment, a tall young man dressed in purple emerged from Flourishing Origin Hall. He followed Hanli from a moderate distance and continued after him when he turned onto another street. For some reason, the man made no effort to conceal himself, so Hanli quickly noticed something unusual. Upon reaching the intersection, Hanli stopped and turned to look at him. The man had an ordinary appearance and wore his black hair tied high above his head. His eyes, however, were an unusually deep shade of purple. Even beneath the daylight, specks of radiance resembling starlight shimmered within them. Seeing Hanli stop, the man smiled and openly walked toward him. Hanli frowned slightly and became more vigilant. He discovered that he could not sense the slightest trace of the man's cultivation. "Were you waiting for me, fellow cultivator?" The purple-robed young man stopped in front of Hanli. "That is not quite right. Were you not the one following me?" Hanli replied calmly. "My name is Gao Feng. While inside Flourishing Origin Hall, I heard that you were searching for a celestial alchemist. Did I hear correctly?" The purple-robed young man gave a non-committal smile as he spoke. "You misunderstand, fellow Taoist. The person I am looking for is Master Kong, not just any celestial alchemist," Hanli said calmly, rubbing his nose. "Master Kong is not only skilled in alchemy but also well-versed in healing formations. He specializes in treating difficult and unusual ailments caused by damage to the soul. I am merely concerned that his abilities may not match what you require, and that your efforts will be in vain," the young man who called himself Gao Feng said with a smile. "You know who I am?" Hanli's expression shifted slightly. "I may have a way to help you with what you seek, fellow Taoistly. Why not come to my humble residence so we can discuss it in private?" Gao Feng continued, his smile appearing sincere. Hanli's expression remained unchanged, but inwardly he was caught in a fierce struggle. The purple-robed young man before him clearly had ulterior motives. There was little doubt that he was connected to one of Shi Chuankong's brothers or sisters, though Han Li had no idea what his true objective might be. However, Soul Cry had remained unconscious for far too long. Allowing the situation to continue was not a lasting solution, and the longer he delayed, the greater the chance that new complications would arise. After hesitating repeatedly, Han Li decided to follow the man. They were still inside Yaong City, so these people probably would not dare act recklessly. Moreover, even if he encountered a great Luo cultivator, while he could not claim with certainty that he would be able to protect himself, he at least had considerable experience escaping from powerful enemies. Very well then Before Han Li could finish speaking, another voice sounded beside him and interrupted. Oh? Isn't this Brother Gao? What happened? Have you captured another Tai Fei beast somewhere? A beautiful white-haired woman with a graceful figure squeezed past Han Li and spoke. She was none other than the woman who had appeared at the Jingwu market after Han Li left that day. However, she had changed out of her armor and now wore a snow-white dress, giving her a softer and more alluring appearance. What nonsense are you talking about? I have no time to deal with you right now. Fellow Taoist Li, let us go. Gao Feng frowned at the woman's arrival and spoke to Han Li with obvious displeasure. The instant Han Li heard the words Tai Fei, his heart stirred. He understood the white-haired woman's intention, and his vigilance immediately overcame his urgency to save Soul Cry. My apologies. I suddenly remembered that I have an important matter to handle, so I will not trouble you with a visit. He cupped his hands briefly. Without another word, he turned and left. He departed Jiantian Street altogether and returned to the Luojia district. By the time night fell, Han Li had returned to the third prince's residence. As he passed through a garden in the middle of the estate, he happened to see Shi Pokong sitting alone inside a stone pavilion, drinking beneath the moon. Fellow Taoist Li, it has been a long time. Why not join me for a drink? Shi Pokong greeted him with a warm smile. Han Li hesitated briefly before entering the pavilion and approaching the table. A wine cup had already been placed across from Shi Pokong. Han Li gave him a respectful salute and sat down. Your Highness seems to be in an unusually leisurely mood tonight, drinking beneath the moon, Han Li said with a smile. Shi Pokong first poured him a cup of wine, then said, I have been tied down by various affairs recently and have been unable to visit you. It was rather discourteous of me. Today I finally found some free time. I heard that you enjoy fine wine, so I brought out this 1,000-year-old Immortal's intoxication from my private collection, hoping to share a few cups with you. Unfortunately, you had gone out, so I could only sit here and drink alone. In that case, I am the one who made your Highness wait. I should punish myself with a cup. Han Li raised his wine cup and drained it in one gulp. Haha. Excellent. With such a straightforward temperament, it is no wonder my 13th brother regards you as one of his closest friends, Shi Pokong said with a hearty laugh. Brother Shi has been in seclusion for quite some time. Do you know when he might emerge? Han Li asked casually. My 13th brother endured one hardship after another before returning. He accumulated many hidden injuries along the way and survived several life and death ordeals. His understanding of cultivation is now far beyond what it once was. After breaking through this time, the benefits he receives will likely be far greater than in the past, Shi Pokong replied with a nod. Then I should congratulate Brother Shi in advance. Han Li raised his cup and clinked it against Shi Pokong's before drinking it down. Fellow Taoist Li, regarding the matter of saving Soul Cry, I have thought about it repeatedly and feel that I should offer you an explanation. The situation is somewhat complicated. It is not that I am unwilling to help, but rather that the proper opportunity has not yet arrived. I hope you can understand, Shi Pokong said, gently swirling his wine without drinking. Then I will have to trouble your Highness, Han Li replied after a moment of thought. Only then did Shi Pokong drink the wine in his cup. After bidding Han Li farewell, he departed. Han Li remained seated in the courtyard for a while before returning to Chongqing Garden. As soon as he entered his room, he activated every restriction within it. He then took out the Tai Fei's single eye, closed it within his palm, and silently began circulating the Great Five Elements illusory world art. From that day onward, he remained in seclusion within the third prince's residence and no longer ventured outside. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. On this particular day, Hanli was cultivating inside his room. Golden radiance surged around him like rolling tides. A layer of golden sand covered the floor beneath him. Golden flames churned on his left, a treasure vase hovered above his head, and a golden wheel slowly revolved behind him. On his right, strands of golden light gathered in the air, forming the faint outline of a tree. Powerful fluctuations of the law of time filled the entire room. Even the light seemed distorted. Some areas were dim and indistinct, while others shone with dazzling brilliance. At that moment, Hanli abruptly withdrew his hands from their incantation gesture. All the manifestations surrounding him flew into his body and vanished in an instant. The golden light filling the room disappeared as well. Only then did the lighting return to normal. The room appeared somewhat dark, for dusk was already approaching. Hanli slowly opened his eyes, released a quiet breath and stood. He walked to the door, straightened his robes, removed all the restrictions in the room and stepped outside. A white-haired young man in purple robes stood beyond the entrance to Chongqing Garden. It could be none other than Shi Chuankong. The moment Shi Chuankong saw Hanli emerge, delight appeared on his face, and he hurried forward. Congratulations on successfully advancing to the Tai realm, fellow Taoist Shi, Hanli said. The congratulations should go both ways. Your cultivation has also improved considerably, Brother Li. I left seclusion more than half a month ago, but I have been unable to see you. Had there not been an important matter to discuss, I truly would not have wished to disturb your cultivation, Shi Chuankong replied with a smile. It does not matter. I have been in seclusion for a long time, so it is good to come out and move around. What is it that you wish to discuss? Hanli asked with a wave of his hand. A few days ago, third brother informed me that father may soon emerge from seclusion. When that happens, there may be an opportunity to arrange treatment for soul cry, Shi Chuankong said. Is that true? Hanli immediately asked. Third brother and I have already made our plans. During the celebration marking father's emergence, I will publicly proclaim your achievements. I will tell everyone that it was only with your assistance that I recovered one of our clan's sacred treasures, the Rakshasa Pipa. I will also make it clear that without your protection, I could never have escaped the 10 Calamities mountain range, much less survive the repeated assassination attempts that followed, Shi Chuankong said confidently. Brother Shi, you intend to place all the credit on me while removing yourself from the matter entirely. What are you trying to accomplish? Do you wish to tell those brothers and sisters who are watching you so closely that you are still the same mediocre, unambitious little brother you were before? Hanli asked after a moment of silence. Haha, they would never believe me no matter what I said. I only intend to do this so that I can request a reward for you from father, Shi Chuankong replied. You mean you want the demon lord to personally order the high priest to treat soul cry? Hanli suddenly understood. Precisely. Once father gives the order, even eldest brother will be unable to refuse, Shi Chuankong said with a smile. No wonder the third prince said he already had a plan. So this is the opportunity he was waiting for. A faint smile appeared at the corner of Hanli's mouth. Third brother has always handled matters flawlessly. You can rest assured, Brother Li, Shi Chuankong said. The two had not seen each other for a long time, so they spoke for quite a while before eventually returning to their respective residences. After returning to his room, Hanli found himself unable to settle down and cultivate. He opened the flower branch cave heaven and went to see Soul cry again. Over the years, aside from cultivating, he had never stopped searching for a way to heal her. Unfortunately, he had made no progress. He had even planned to leave on his own if Shi Chuankong did not emerge from seclusion soon. Now that he had Shi Chuankong's assurance, he finally felt somewhat relieved. More than half a year passed. On this day, Hanli was cultivating inside the residence when the deep toll of a massive bell suddenly rang out from outside. It easily penetrated the restrictions he had placed around his room. The bell possessed a mysterious power that caused the immortal spiritual energy within his body to tremble and ripple like water. The vibration was not harmful. On the contrary, it gave Hanli an unusually comfortable sensation. He stopped cultivating, left his room, and entered the courtyard of Chongqing Garden. The majestic ringing came continuously from the summit of the sacred mountain. With every toll, Rings of silver radiance emerged from the mountaintop and spread outward in all directions. When the servants in the third prince's residence heard the bell, they were overjoyed. They immediately set aside whatever they were doing and sat cross-legged where they stood. The bell continued ringing for the time it took to drink a cup of tea before finally falling silent. The servants throughout the residence opened their eyes one after another, delight visible on their faces. The auras around their bodies had clearly become slightly purer. Hanli sensed the change and looked surprised. That is our clan's Three Saints Origin calming bell. It has the ability to cleanse spiritual energy. However, activating it consumes an enormous amount of power, so it is only rung when an important event occurs. A voice suddenly came from in front of him. Silver light appeared in the empty air and gathered at a single point. In the blink of an eye, it formed a translucent figure. It was Shi Chuankong. A spatial avatar? After advancing to the Tai realm, your control over the law of space has become even more profound. Impressive, Hanli said with a smile. Haha, you praise me too much. It is merely a mirror avatar with only 10 or 20% of my true body's strength. Its only advantage is that it can project itself over great distances, so it is mostly used for communication, Shi Chuankong replied, looking somewhat pleased with himself. Hanli clicked his tongue in admiration. He suddenly remembered the time he had used the heaven-controlling vial to send his soul into the devil realm. When the demon lord descended upon the battlefield that day, he had seemingly used the same mirror avatar ability, though his technique had clearly been far more profound than Shi Chuankong's. Since the bell has sounded, could it be that? Hanli composed himself and asked. That is correct. Father has emerged from seclusion. He will probably summon us tomorrow. When the time comes, we will proceed according to plan, Shi Chuankong said with a nod. Very well. Hanli nodded, though his expression was somewhat solemn. There is no need to worry, fellow Taoist Li. Third brother's plans have always been flawless. Father will certainly agree, Shi Chuankong reassured him. Hanli smiled but said nothing. Shi Chuankong then reminded him of several matters that required attention during the upcoming audience before dispersing his spatial avatar. Hanli stared deeply toward the sacred mountain for a moment, then turned and returned to his room. The night passed quickly. Early the next morning, Hanli dressed neatly and arrived in the main hall. Shi Pokong and Shi Chuankong were already there. Both had changed into luxurious purple robes, with jade belts around their waists and ornate purple-gold crowns upon their heads. They resembled mortal princes and carried an air of exceptional nobility. 3 radiant pearls were embedded in Shi Pokong's crown. Shi Chuankong's crown was much duller in color, and did not contain a single pearl. My apologies for keeping you waiting, Hanli said as he examined their clothing. It is no trouble. We only just arrived, Shi Chuankong replied with a smile. Let us go. Shi Pokong appeared perfectly calm. He nodded slightly to Hanli and walked outside. The 3 soon left the residence, where 2 beast-drawn carriages waited at the entrance. The first carriage was exceptionally luxurious and entirely golden. It was drawn by a golden lion-like beast covered in thick lustrous fur. The creature looked powerful and majestic. A golden canopy rose above the carriage and fluttered in the wind. The second carriage was far more ordinary, though it was considerably larger. A red-robed man stood beside it. It was Marquis Shueti. Just as Hanli looked toward him, Marquis Shueti also turned his way and greeted him with a smile. Fellow Taoist Li, we are going to meet Father. He places great importance on the laws and traditions of the sacred realm, so we can no longer travel in the same carriage. I must trouble you to ride in the carriage behind us with Marquis Shueti, Shi Chuankong said. Hanli nodded and boarded the second carriage with Marquis Shueti. Let us depart. Shi Pokong and Shi Chuankong entered the first carriage and gave the order. The 2 carriages immediately raced forward. Fellow Taoist Shueti, it has been a long time. I must thank you for what you did back then. You drew away perfected Xiaogu for us. Otherwise, fellow Taoist Shi and I might not have returned safely to Yeong City, Hanli said with a smile. You are too courteous, fellow Taoist Li. Speaking of that incident, I am truly ashamed. The 3rd prince sent me to escort you and the 13th prince back to Yeong City, yet I was unable to accomplish much. Instead, that old demon Xiaogu severely injured me. I spent a long time in seclusion recovering, and only recently healed completely. I heard that you later killed perfected Xiaogu. Your strength is truly unfathomable. I admire you greatly, Marquis Shuedi replied with a cheerful smile. I only managed to kill him because several fortunate coincidences occurred at the same time. If we fought again, I would undoubtedly be the one to die, Han Li replied with a dismissive laugh. You are far too modest, Marquis Shuedi said. As they chatted, the beast carriages continued speeding forward. Han Li had rarely gone out over the past several years. Most of his excursions had been to the Mo district to purchase supplies or search for a cure for Soul Cry. He had never wandered extensively through the Luojia district, so he knew little about it. Now, as he rode through the area, he finally gained a clear view of its layout. Because the district stood near the sacred mountain, its terrain sloped upward from south to north. The entire district had been constructed according to this incline. Layers of buildings stretched from the base of the sacred mountain all the way to the city walls, arranged with remarkable precision like a vast staircase. The closer they came to the sacred mountain, the taller and more magnificent the surrounding buildings became. After the two carriages turned through several intersections, an immensely broad avenue paved with white jade appeared ahead. The road was nearly 1,000 feet wide and extended perfectly straight toward the sacred mountain. Han Li suddenly froze, astonishment appearing in his eyes. Countless people were seated on both sides of the white avenue. The densely packed crowd stretched all the way to the foot of the sacred mountain. Every person wore a reverent expression and repeatedly bowed toward the mountain. None paid any attention to Shi Pokong or the others. Whenever Father emerges from seclusion, a grand ceremony of worship is held. Everyone in the city gathers beside this sacred road and spends the entire day offering prayers and paying homage, Marquis Shuedi explained after noticing Han Li's expression. I see. Han Li slowly nodded. The carriages did not stop. They sped along the white jade avenue toward the sacred mountain. After nearly half an hour, they finally reached the foot of the mountain and stopped before an enormous palace complex. The complex occupied several hundred acres and contained more than 1,000 palaces. Every structure had been built from a kind of jet-black crystal. The crystal was smooth and translucent, resembling the finest black crystal. It emitted waves of pure black radiance and was clearly an exceptionally valuable material. Every palace was covered with exquisitely crafted reliefs and paintings of demon gods and exotic beasts. This is the Sacred Emperor's residence, the Sacred Emperor Palace, Marquis Shuedi explained. Beside the palace complex stood an enormous white jade plaza, no smaller than the palace grounds themselves. A huge altar rose from its center, constructed entirely from an ancient-looking blue-black material. The worshipping crowd extended from below the mountain all the way into the plaza. The plaza itself was completely filled with people, all bowing toward the altar while murmuring prayers and blessings. Let us go. According to tradition, we must also pay our respects before entering the Sacred Emperor Palace to meet Father, Shi Pokong said as he descended from the carriage and walked toward the altar. The others immediately followed and soon arrived beneath it. Han Li looked upward. There was nothing particularly unusual atop the altar apart from two towering statues. Although the statues were ancient and their features were not sharply defined, they seemed extraordinarily lifelike, as though they were living beings rather than carvings. One statue was entirely snow-white. It depicted a woman with a benevolent face and a gentle smile. She resembled the mother of all living beings, and inspired an incomparable sense of peace. The other statue was completely different. It was entirely black and possessed 12 heads and 24 arms. Each head displayed a different emotion: anger, joy, indifference, sorrow, and many more, as though they embodied every feeling in existence. Each hand formed a different gesture. Some spread their fingers wide, while others reached outward as though grasping at invisible souls. Every movement suggested the power to seize both spirit and life. Han Li studied the statues, his eyes flickering. Over the years, he had researched a great deal about the Devil Realm. These were the two deities worshipped by its people, the Netherworld Holy Mother and the Heavenly Fiend Sacred Emperor. According to legend, the Heavenly Fiend Sacred Emperor had shattered the endless void and created the entire Devil Realm, while the Netherworld Holy Mother had created its countless living beings, and was revered as the mother of all life. Han Li naturally did not place much faith in such legends. However, this was the first time he had seen statues of the two deities, so he could not help examining them closely. His gaze paused briefly on the netherworld Holy Mother before shifting to the heavenly fiend Sacred Emperor. He suddenly frowned. This was unquestionably the first time he had seen the statue, yet it gave him a faint sense of familiarity, as though he had encountered it somewhere before. He began examining it more carefully, a trace of purple light appearing in his eyes. Although he still stood some distance from the top of the altar, Han Li's eyesight was powerful enough to reveal every detail of the two statues with perfect clarity. What? His expression changed again, and his gaze locked onto the waist of the heavenly fiend Sacred Emperor. A jade belt was wrapped around it, and a line of strange writing had been carved into its surface. The writing was identical to the inscriptions on the statue Han Li had obtained from perfected Zhaogu. It was clearly the same language. Han Li had occasionally studied the inscriptions on that statue over the years, but he had never found any clues. He had never expected to discover the same writing here. Delight rose in his heart, and he prepared to examine the words more closely. At that moment, black light suddenly flashed within the eyes of one of the heavenly fiend's Sacred Emperor's heads. The statue appeared to look directly at him. A boundless aura of darkness erupted from it, instantly swallowing all the surrounding light. Han Li's heart trembled violently. He felt every part of his soul surging within him, as though it were about to be torn from his body and dragged into the depths of that darkness. His body seemed to have been crushed beneath an unimaginably vast layer of ice. Everything within him froze completely. He could not circulate the slightest trace of power and could only watch helplessly as it happened. Then, in the next instant, everything vanished. The surroundings became bright once more, and the black light in the statue's eyes disappeared without a trace, as though the entire experience had been nothing more than an illusion. Although it had lasted only an instant, every hair on Han Li's body stood on end. His heart pounded like a drum, and he involuntarily stepped backward. "Fellow Taoist Li, what is wrong?" Marquis Xueti asked, turning toward him. Shi Chuankong also looked over in surprise. Judging from their expressions, neither of them had noticed anything unusual about the statue. "It is nothing. I merely feel somewhat uneasy about meeting the Sacred Lord," Han Li said after a brief silence, forcing his heartbeat to calm. "There is no need to worry. Father may be stern, but he is not unreasonable," Shi Chuankong said with a smile. Han Li forced a smile in return. He secretly examined the statue of the heavenly fiend Sacred Emperor again, but this time it showed no abnormalities whatsoever. "Let us go," Shi Pokong said calmly before taking the lead up the altar steps. Han Li and the others immediately followed and soon reached the top. The summit was a flat area several dozen yards across. Aside from the two statues, it contained nothing else. Countless patterns had been carved into the ground, forming a massive oval formation. Several dozen figures wearing priestly robes sat cross-legged within the formation. Each held a different ritual artifact and murmured chants toward the two statues. Standing atop the altar, Han Li looked around. The two statues towered before them, appearing even larger from this distance. Their vast shadows covered the group, making them resemble deities standing in the heavens and looking down upon mortals below. Han Li could now clearly feel waves of tremendous pressure radiating from both statues and weighing heavily upon his heart. Even with his current cultivation, he felt as though he could hardly breathe. His heart tightened. Had the strange phenomenon from before returned? At that moment, he noticed from the corner of his eye that Shi Pokong and the others were also slightly pale. They were clearly enduring the immense pressure released by the statues. The three immediately bowed before the statues. As soon as they completed the gesture, their expressions relaxed considerably. Seeing this, Han Li's heart stirred. After a brief hesitation, he also bowed to the statues. Strangely, the enormous pressure weighing upon him immediately began to recede. Han Li raised an eyebrow. His interest in the heavenly fiend Sacred Emperor and the netherworld Holy Mother deepened. The statues possessed such remarkable spirituality. Could these two deities truly exist within the Devil Realm? Your Highnesses have offered your prayers with sincere hearts. The Sacred Emperor and Holy Mother will surely witness your devotion, grant you boundless blessings and protect you both, said a priest who appeared to be the leader as he stood and returned their bows. He was a middle-aged man with disheveled yellow hair and dark, rough skin. He resembled an old farmer who had spent his life laboring in the countryside. Only his eyes were unusual, shining with remarkable brightness. Han Li examined him and frowned almost imperceptibly. The priest's aura was not especially powerful. He was only at the early golden immortal stage and could have been crushed by a single one of Han Li's fingers. Yet for some unknown reason, the man gave him an inexplicable sense of danger. "Thank you for your auspicious words, Priest Lianjin," Shi Pokong replied with a light smile and a nod. Han Li's heart stirred upon hearing the name. Because of Soul Cry, he had researched the sacrificial hall of Yeyang City over the past several years. The sacrificial hall was a unique institution within the city. Although its priests were under the authority of the Sacred Lord, they were not required to carry out ordinary missions. Their sole duty was to serve the heavenly fiend Sacred Emperor and the Netherworld Holy Mother. The high priest stood at the head of the sacrificial hall, with several senior priests beneath him. Priest Lianjin was one of them. Han Li soon shifted his gaze away from Priest Lianjin and examined the other priests. When he failed to discover anyone with a higher cultivation level, he felt somewhat disappointed. "Haha! Third brother, you have arrived rather early." A loud laugh came from below. Several figures climbed onto the altar. The man in front appeared to be around 37 or 38 years old. He was tall and wore a purple robe similar to those worn by Shi Pokong and Shi Chuankong. 3 pearls were embedded in the purple gold crown atop his head. A faint purple mark lay between his brows, flickering with mysterious purple light. Han Li froze slightly. Was this not the same man who had invited him away in the Mo district 10 years ago? The only difference was that his formerly black hair had turned completely white. 2 other men in purple brocade robes stood beside him. One of them was glaring toward Han Li's group with open hostility. He was the 8th prince whom Han Li had briefly encountered upon first entering the city. The other was a thin young man with a waxy yellow complexion and uneven breathing. He looked like someone suffering from a severe lingering illness. Several attendants followed behind the 3 princes, each possessing an extraordinary bearing. "So it is eldest brother along with 8th brother and 10th brother. It has indeed been a long time since we last met," Shi Pokong said with a smile, cupping his hands toward them from a distance. Han Li immediately understood. The tall, imposing man in purple was Shi Chuankong's eldest brother, the Demon Lord's first prince, Shi Zhanfeng. That made Shi Zhanfeng's earlier attempt to recruit him far more thought-provoking. Han Li also began wondering about the identity of the white-haired woman who had warned him that day. Numerous questions flashed through his mind, and his gaze began roaming around the surrounding area. "You have already met 8th brother, Shi Chuanjia. The sickly-looking man is 10th brother, Shi Bofu. He suffered from a strange illness as a child and remained bedridden for a long time before finally recovering. However, the misfortune became a blessing, as it allowed him to comprehend an extremely powerful law of curses. He must not be underestimated. Both 8th brother and 10th brother have aligned themselves with eldest brother." Shi Chuankong's voice sounded directly in Han Li's mind, explaining the identities of the other 2 princes. Han Li secretly examined the 10th prince several times. The man had also reached the Tai realm. Although he was only at its early stage, his aura was strange and gave off an extremely unpleasant sensation. That is true. Although we all live in Yeyang City, each of us has our own responsibilities, so we rarely meet. I recently obtained 2 bottles of violet immortal wine from the true Immortal Realm. After we meet Father today, why do 3rd brother and 13th brother not come to my residence? We brothers can drink together to our heart's content. Would that not be wonderful?" Shi Zhanfeng asked with a loud laugh. Shi Chuankong's expression changed slightly. He was about to signal Shi Pokong to refuse, but before he could do so, Shi Pokong had already nodded in agreement. "Since eldest brother has made such a gracious invitation, I will naturally accompany you. We brothers are usually scattered across different places, so Father's emergence from seclusion provides a rare opportunity for us to gather." Shi Chuankong became extremely anxious, but the matter had already been decided, and there was nothing he could do. "Excellent. Then it is settled. By the way, fellow Taoist Li, you may also come if you are interested." The offer I made to you that day still stands, Shi Zhanfeng said with a smile, suddenly turning his gaze toward Han Li. He then stepped forward and began paying his respects to the Heavenly Fiend's Sacred Emperor and the Netherworld Holy Mother. The 8th and 10th princes gave Han Li peculiar smiles before stepping forward to bow as well, no longer paying any attention to Shi Pokong's group. Han Li was inwardly furious. Shi Zhanfeng's attempt to sow distrust was truly vicious. However, Han Li allowed none of his anger to show on his face. Fellow Taoist Li, what did the first prince mean by those words? Marquis Xueti's expression darkened as he questioned Han Li through a voice transmission. Marquis Xueti, do not speak recklessly, Shi Pokong said, his gaze turning cold as he glared at him. Marquis Xueti shuddered and stepped back, but the way he looked at Han Li was now filled with deep suspicion. Han Li sensed his gaze and frowned, silently sighing. Marquis Xueti had once risked his life to draw away perfected Zhaogu. Although he had acted under Shi Pokong's orders, Han Li had remained deeply grateful to him. Upon meeting him for a second time, Han Li had even considered becoming friends with him. He had never expected Marquis Xueti to turn against him so readily because of a single remark from the first prince. A man who could not distinguish truth from deception was not worth befriending. Let us leave first, Shi Pokong said with a faint smile toward Han Li. The group descended the altar using another staircase and walked toward the distant Sacred Emperor Palace. No one spoke, and the atmosphere became somewhat oppressive. Fellow Taoist Li, what exactly did eldest brother mean just now? Shi Chuankong hesitated but ultimately could not restrain his curiosity. Although his question was similar to Marquis Xueti's, his tone contained no accusation. 13th brother, this was merely eldest brother's attempt to create distrust between us. Fellow Taoist Li is your friend. Do you not trust him? Shi Pokong interrupted with a light laugh. Of course I trust fellow Taoist Li. I am only curious about what eldest brother did. Shi Chuankong replied with an awkward chuckle. It was nothing significant. I was wandering through the Mo district when I happened to encounter the first prince. We spoke briefly about Soul Cry's injuries. However, his appearance was somewhat different at the time, so I did not know his identity, Han Li said after a moment of thought. He then gave them a general account of his previous encounter with the first prince. So that is what happened. Eldest brother truly is cunning. I cannot believe he would resort to such a despicable method, Shi Chuankong said with a cold snort. Eldest brother has always behaved this way. We only need to remain cautious and avoid falling into disorder, Shi Pokong said calmly before glancing at Marquis Xueti. Embarrassment appeared on Marquis Xueti's face. He bowed deeply to Han Li. I acted impulsively and spoke improperly just now. Please forgive me, fellow Taoist Li. It is of no consequence, Han Li replied expressionlessly, his tone cold. Marquis Xueti knew that he had deeply offended Han Li, and that his apology had come too late. He straightened awkwardly. The group continued deeper into the palace complex and soon arrived before a massive black hall at its center. The hall stood nearly 1,000 feet tall, towering above all the surrounding buildings. At each of its four corners stood a massive black stone pillar several people wide, each engraved with the lifelike relief of a demon god. A huge plaque hung above the main entrance, bearing the words Sacred Emperor Hall, in 3 large purple characters. The strokes were ancient, powerful and vigorous, twisting like dragons and serpents. They seemed to possess the momentum to surge into the clouds and roar across the heavens. 2 purple-robed attendants stood outside the main doors. When they saw the 4 approaching, they hurriedly bowed to Shi Pokong and Shi Chuankong. Is father inside? Shi Pokong asked calmly. The Sacred Lord is present. Please wait a moment, your highnesses. I will report your arrival immediately, one attendant replied before hurrying inside. A moment later he returned. The Sacred Lord has given the order. The 4 of you may enter. Shi Pokong and Shi Chuankong took deep breaths, adjusted their clothing, and entered the hall. Han Li and Marquis Xueti followed one step behind them. The interior was enormous but completely empty, making it appear exceptionally vast. The walls on both sides were covered with all kinds of carvings. Some depicted human figures, while others depicted beasts. Every statue was so lifelike that it seemed ready to break free from the wall and return to life at any moment. The hall was dimly lit, and the carvings remained hidden within the shadows, giving them a sinister appearance. The group proceeded in silence. Only when they reached the deepest part of the hall did the light become bright again. A raised platform stood ahead. A purple-robed man sat upon the main seat at its summit. He appeared to be in his 40s or 50s. He had a full head of white hair, a square face and thin eyebrows. At first glance, he resembled an elegant scholar, but his expression carried an unquestionable majesty that inspired fear even without anger. The man did not release any overwhelming aura or pressure. Even so, everyone who looked upon him instinctively felt an urge to submit. Hanli had once seen the demon lord when his soul traveled through the heaven-controlling vial. However, the man had not revealed his true body at that time. Now Hanli could not help looking at him a few more times. The demon lord seemed to sense his gaze and looked back. Hanli's heart immediately skipped a beat. A chill spread throughout his body, as though every secret he possessed had been seen through. His expression changed, and all the immortal spiritual energy within him surged into motion. His spiritual sense also poured from his mind and flowed throughout his body as he attempted to resist the demon lord's gaze. Yet no matter how he circulated his powers, every defense proved useless before those eyes. The cold sensation intensified until Hanli nearly collapsed from weakness. The demon lord's gaze lingered on Hanli's face. A trace of surprise appeared in his expression before vanishing. He calmly looked away. Only then did the freezing sensation throughout Hanli's body recede like a withdrawing tide. He secretly released a breath, and his tense mind slowly relaxed. The demon lord's gaze had rested upon him for only 1 or 2 breaths, yet Hanli felt as though a very long time had passed. The abrupt tightening and release of his mind left him utterly exhausted, more drained than if he had fought a powerful enemy in a desperate battle. We pay our respects to Father and congratulate Father on emerging from seclusion after attaining great success in your divine art. Shi Pokong and Shi Chuankong stopped several yards before the platform and knelt together.